Well, this seems awfully familiar, doesn't it? Another day, another pitch for a versus show. You gotta love it. As some of you may be aware due to my reaction videos on it, there's been a new versus show on YouTube called Nebula Theater for the past couple of months. And as of right now, they've had 2 episodes released to some pretty enjoyable quality overall. What's more, through their YouTube memberships, they've afforded people the chance to pitch any matchup directly to them. And wouldn't you know it, I am now one of those people. Do I ever get tired of spending money like this? Perhaps, but hey, any chance to share my ideas and why I like them is worth it in my book, especially if it goes towards funding Versus creators' passions. So, with all that said, I hope you enjoy my Nebula Theater pitch on Chris Walker versus Pyramid Head. Hang on a second. This is being recorded for my own channel's sake. Is that okay with both of you?
Yeah, we're good.
Nope, no, kidding, it's fine.
Alright, well, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm really excited, so let's not waste any time and get right on in. As just a bit of disclaimer here for any viewers who are watching the video, this is going to be a dark games that we're going to be covering. So, as you may have heard, the pitch today is Chris Walker from Outlast versus Pyramid Head from Silent Hill. 2 very iconic horror monsters going head-to-head in a bloody battle to the death. Now, what are the connections? Both are iconic horror monsters from iconic psychological horror games, Silent Hill and Outlast. Both share a bloody, grungy aesthetic, albeit in somewhat similar, somewhat different ways. Both are the biggest threat to the main character and pursue them throughout the entire game. While they had some history beyond them, both are tied to a singular location that made them what they are, Silent Hill itself and Mount Massive Asylum, where Chris became this monstrosity. And both are openly feared by every other enemy in the game, which further raises their fear factor. And I know on the surface it might not seem like a ton, but it is enough to at least explain it to a casual person. And there is something deeper that you can tie them together in a very nice way. That being, in a way, they both represent the horrors of man. One in a more physical perspective, while the other in a more psychological perspective. Because what Chris is he is a byproduct of the experiments at Mount Massive Asylum to control a higher power. While Pyramid Head is a product of James' sins when he killed his wife when she was sick. Because, and in a way, they are each representative of what man is willing to do if he can rationalize it. Men trying to gain power and men trying to relieve themselves of pain. It's not concrete, admittedly, it's a little loose, but I do think that it is solid enough to where it clicks with me personally really nicely. And if push comes to shove, I just think it's neat. I just think it's neat, as simple as that. But there is one thing we need to address before we get into like the nitty gritty. Can Chris see Pyramid Head? Because the way Silent Hill works is kind of a problem for a lot of Pyramid Head matchups to where they can't even interact with him. And let me explain why. See, the town of Silent Hill is technically split up into 2 areas. The regular town and the other world. The town is just the town. It's the physical town that anyone can go to. But the other world is a sort of a separate reality that is manifested based on a person's psychological issues, like their own personal trauma. And both kind of influence each other to where no one who enters the town or the other world will see the same thing as others. And since Pyramid Head is a byproduct of James' other world, specifically James's own Silent Hill, if you will, this has led many people to believe that unless you're in the town at the same time as James and can somehow see Pyramid Head too, they can't even interact with him. Can Chris though? I would argue that yes, because there are multiple instances throughout all of Silent Hill really, where people can see the same things as others just through a different lens. In Silent Hill 3, there's the iconic line from Vincent over here that says, "They look like monsters to you?" Which is which even though he passes it off as a joke, is kind of a dark foreboding that the monsters we see around town are actually the citizens, and we've been killing them all throughout this entire game, entire franchise. So that's But another example is in Silent Hill Downpour, where you have these 2 characters, sort of deuterogonous, Murphy and Anne. And ordinarily they're just like regular people, but due to in-universe story reasons, and what Murphy got into with Anne's father, while we see him as just a normal guy, she sees him like this because in her mind, he is the root cause for all of her life, all of her past trauma. So he appears differently to her than he would to anyone else. But the biggest example that I can think of anyway is the abstract daddy from Silent Hill 2. This is a physical manifestation of another character in Silent Hill 2, Angela. It is basically representative of the trauma inflicted by her father. And not only can you interact with this thing, there's a whole boss fight against it in both versions of Silent Hill 2. And it's even implied, there's even some suggestions that this monster we see isn't even what it looks like to Angela, it's just what James sees at the moment. And so I definitely think that there is ways for Pyramid Head to interact with Chris. You just need to get Chris into Silent Hill around the same time James is, which wouldn't be that much big of a problem. I guess the only thing you would need to consider is like how you can get like two different other worlds to interact, but Silent Hill does that all the time too. And to my knowledge, there's not really a set reason for why it happens. It just happens. Sometimes you're in your own Silent Hill, sometimes you're in a different Silent Hill. It's a little weird. But as far as relevant material that is worth discussing, Outlast is pretty simple. You just got the original game and its DLC. You can also look at Outlast 2, but Chris isn't really in that, so I guess that would be flavor text. And also the Outlast trials exist so like as background evidence for Mount Massive's experiments. There is also a string of comics that are available on Red Barrel's website, and they are canon, and they're free to read, so that's pretty simple too. For Pyramid Head, obviously you got the most of the Silent Hill franchise to work with and to set up the town itself. But for Pyramid Head specifically, I strongly recommend that for feats scaling and explaining his nature, I strongly recommend that you stick with just the original and the remake of Silent Hill 2 specifically. No Dead by Daylight, no movies, no Silent Hill Homecoming. People especially hate that last one, so I think just to keep the most people happy, just stick with these two for Pyramid Head specifically, with the rest of the games being background lore and setting up the town of Silent Hill. Oh, and I guess another question would be, how familiar are both of you with these two franchises?
Not very.
Not very?
It's
Not
very funny.
I don't know what Outlast is. I know what Silent Hill is, but I've never played 2.
It's very, very funny that you asked this because I wrote my final university paper on Silent Hill 2.
Wow! What a coincidence!
It was one of the 3 games that I picked to write about, and Pyramid Head was like a focal topic of that. So I'm very familiar with the Silent Hill franchise, and I am very familiar with Outlast. I keep trying to convince everybody around me to play Outlast Trials with me.
Outlast Trials is actually the one Outlast game I have not played, actually.
I guess the one thing I'll ask is if the other monsters in the town are just normal people that he's accidentally killing, what is Pyramid Head?
Pyramid Head is...
Is it real?
Pyramid Head and essentially other manifestations of other people's personal traumas are their own entities made manifest by the town itself. Because the town is, in a way, supernatural and also somewhat alive. It's a little weird, but the idea is that sometimes what you will see is different depending on the person, and sometimes the monsters are real and they are made manifest by the town, but other times they are potentially the actual denizens of the town that just look like monsters. It's a bit dependent on what you're looking at, but for Pyramid Head specifically, he is a monster made manifest by the town. At least that's how I see it. Now, getting into backstories, for Chris, he was once a security guard for Mount Massive Asylum with a history in the army that he was enrolled with, and he seemed like a normal dude, just, I'm stumbling over my words, just a larger than normal average dude, just with military experience. But unbeknownst to them, Chris was actually a serial killer who loved to decapitate people, sometimes with his bare hands. And eventually he was found out, and after some scuffle that left him injured, he was roped into the trials themselves to contain a beast called the Wall Rider, which they thought was supernatural, but was actually like some sort of weird string of nanobots. And eventually Chris became subject to those same experiments that warped his mind and somewhat his body, and also made him gain like 30 pounds too. But yeah, now he's effectively
experimentation that made him like that.
Experimentation just warped his mind and his body to where he's more monster than man. But after this, take a wild guess what happened. Everyone broke out. The Wall Rider broke loose, and all the inmates ransacked the asylum, killing everybody in their midst, Chris included. And now he basically roams the entire asylum, just killing people left and right, like a maniac. And as for feats that Chris has specifically, he is really, really strong, at least for an average guy. He smashed up this monitor set, presumably with his bare hands. He can throw people out windows to where they shatter. He can rip off their heads with his bare hands very casually. He's backhanded people so hard they go flying. In fact, this one can actually be considered a speed feat, because the girl who had him at gunpoint was a fair distance away from him, yet he ran full tilt in front of her and was able to backhand her before she could even react. Other feats include shattering reinforced glass. It took a few strikes, but he did do this. But most notably, he's able to knock down any door in the asylum, including these steel reinforced doors, which, after some research, I discovered are designed to withstand up to 1,500 pounds of force, and he can do it in just 3 strikes. Just knock him full down. Other feats include some durability feats. He was able to survive being shot through the mouth, which is really painful. He was hit by a car and was perfectly fine. He jumped out of a 2-story window and didn't break his legs. And some other notable things is that he knows judo from his army days. And he seems to possess some sort of extrasensory abilities, at least in the dark, some sort of night vision, because he can chase the player, or Miles is the main character, and he can chase them around in dark areas without much issue. So he might possess some sort of night vision too. But as for weaknesses, dude's pretty handedly insane, like to an extreme degree. In fact, the only thing that's keeping his mind intact is him falling back on his army training. In fact, if you play the game, you can actually hear him muttering to himself his own protocols that he learned throughout his army days. So that's the only thing keeping his mind in relative condition. And if you notice, there's actually a wound up here that he inflicted himself, because in his own twisted mind, it was a way to open his third eye, which he did by just ripping off a piece of his own flesh. And other things is that he mainly relies on physical stuff. He can pick up nearby objects to batter people with too, but as far as like weaponry and such, that's not really something he has. It's just something he just mainly relies on brute force more than anything. And another weakness would be that for as tough as he is, he does have a limit to how much punishment he can take, because his death actually comes at the hands of the Wall Rider itself, who just manhandles him, like literally throws him over the walls. And while he is able to tank these for a time, he eventually dies when the Wall Rider possesses him and then shoves him through a metal grate, shredding him like tissue paper. Yes, it's a very violent game. And
the scariest thing about Outlast is because you see everything through like a night vision camera a lot of the time. The scariest part is when you run out of batteries. Mm-hmm. There's no guarantee you'll find them for the next 20 minutes.
I played Outlast on insane mode and tried not to reload the battery. That is let's just say you are on the next level if you accomplish that.
Yeah, you're a better man than me.
But getting into Pyramid Head now. Not much is known about what Pyramid Head used to be in like the town's folklore. We see an image in both versions of Silent Hill 2 that seems to depict an executioner of some kind that looks like Pyramid Head wielding a spear. But that's mostly in background. What we do know is that at some point in James's life, his wife Mary fell sick with an illness, and eventually, after much deliberation, James suffocated her with a pillow for whatever reason, whether it was to put her out of her misery, whether it was for his own selfish reasons. It's kind of left up to interpretation, but for whatever reason, he did that. And I think after what's implied to be a couple days, not like 2 years as he sets up in the prologue, he eventually gets called to Silent Hill, where he's forced to confront his own inner demons, one of which has manifested as the old executioner of the town, Pyramid Head. He is now a monster that haunts James throughout the game. Now, as far as feats are concerned, he is pretty strong himself. He's able to throw James in the remake. He's able to throw James through this elevator shaft. And in one of his boss fights, he's able to roar so loud that he shakes a large area of the boss arena. He's able to damage James pretty badly, which is impressive since in the original, James survived being thrown through this grate and off the top of a building. And one of his better feats in the remake is him shattering the stone wall, which I think you could calculate to maybe somewhere in the wall to maybe small building level ranges, just based on how violent fragmentation works. I'm not really good at that sort of calculations myself, but I imagine you could get this decently high, relatively speaking. But as far as weapons are concerned, because Pyramid Head does have weapons, he is most iconic is the Great Knife, which is a big-ass sword, basically. Despite being called a knife, it is just a giant sword that he can swing around. He also gets his hands on a spear that he can use to swipe, stab, and throw at James. And one thing that's a little up in the air is that in the original, he seems to possess this weird tongue ability. Like this, some sort of weird tongue coming out of the pyramid. It may have been debunked as nothing more than an animation quirk. I don't know, but it is something people have noticed and pointed out. So make of this what you will. But as for weaknesses, Pyramid Head's not much without weaponry. Like generally speaking, he relies a lot on his spear or the Great Knife. Physically, he is still pretty strong, but he doesn't have much physical prowess without those weapons. But I guess a bigger weakness of his would be heavy is the head that wears the pyramid, because this dude is slow. Like, really, really slow. Oh, dude, like, there is some times where he can speed himself up a little bit, but it's little more than, like, speed walking. just like a slightly faster walk, because otherwise, dude has no speed feats you can really pull from. Even, like, tagging James, who has his own bullet dodging feats, wouldn't really be fair, because Pyramid Head's attacks are so slow in any of his boss fights that getting hit by any one of them it just feels more like bad luck than anything. So, yeah. But as far as the way to kill Pyramid Head, typically... Sorry, I'm drinking water.
You guys.
Typically, it's theorized to be technically not plausible for Pyramid Head to die, since he is a physical manifestation, is kind of a conceptual entity made from James's trauma. So, and as the story sets up, it's kind of implied that the only way for him to die is for James to prove that he doesn't need him anymore. Like at the end with the 2 Pyramid Head boss fights, where Pyramid Head, after enough time, Pyramid Head just stabs themselves in the head. But I do think there is a different way you can technically kill Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head is a manifestation of James specifically. He exists because James's own trauma exists. So theoretically, if someone were to kill James, Pyramid Head would have no reason to exist anymore. So that would possibly leave Pyramid Head open to being killed. That is just a theory of mine. You could probably look deeper into it and maybe not prove it to be true. But it is something that I have thought about and something that I do think could technically be possible. Now getting into the fight. The image here speaks for itself. The artist did a very good job working with this. I think the setup, having Chris coming to being called to Silent Hill away from Mount Massive for his own crimes, like he has too many to count, so there's really no reason Silent Hill wouldn't call him there. And I think the idea of him bumping into James, who he just immediately tries to kill, and then Pyramid Head showing up from behind, and that gets Chris's attention. And ordinarily not much of a reason to fight, but this would be just what James sees. this is what Chris would see. Because Chris sees East Silent Hill through a much different lens. James doesn't even look like James to him. It's just one of the other Outlast inmates. And Pyramid Head specifically, while he is still there, it's a bit blurry in the image, but the idea is that Pyramid Head to Chris would manifest as Miles Upshur, how he looked at the end of the Outlast game when he got possessed by the Wall Rider. And the idea is that Chris would see him as his personal demon, who he tried so hard to kill but failed in the end. And so I think that's a really cool way to like work in the night vision aesthetic too, because I feel like an Outlast matchup should be able to incorporate that in some way, and I think this is a really cool way to do it. Maybe not with like the camera lens, but like the general aesthetic of like the night vision would be really cool to see through, to give Chris his own POV. I just think it's really cool. Now, as for ideas for the fight, contrary to what this image says, I don't think Pyramid Head should have the Great Knife right away. I think it should start as just fisticuffs at first. Maybe seeing other enemies get involved and having them grab and batter each other over the head with them. And I think at some point, Pyramid Head should get the spear and then Chris tries to counter that by breaking down doors and using them as shields to block it. And I think a lot of physical back and forth between the spear and Chris's own brute strength and maybe even his own judo skills would be very neat. And I especially think it'd be cool if Pyramid Head tried to get the jump on Chris by disappearing into the darkness, but Chris's own night vision would allow him to see Pyramid Head coming and thwart his plans. But the main inspiration for this image, however, is towards the end, where eventually they end up in the same arena that you fight Pyramid Head in Silent Hill 2, and Pyramid Head finally gets his hands on the Great Knife, and Chris uses the nearby boxes to his advantage, because if you play Silent Hill 2 Remake, there's a bunch of boxes everywhere that I think Chris can make advantage of. And that's where they would just go all out slugfest between them. And this moment in particular would be like a sort of a linchpin for who decides the winner. Just a big struggle between Pyramid Head trying to bring down the Great Knife on Chris, and Chris trying his best to hold it back, and it's just like a power struggle between them. Now, as for the death, and I know you guys have the stipulation, well, it doesn't have to end in a death, but with these two characters, it's gonna end in the death, it's just within their characters to kill them. If Chris wins, I think the best way for him to win is to just rip off Pyramid Head's head. I especially love this image, because it just looks so cool. And if Pyramid Head wins, I think he'd end up splitting Pyramid. I'm stumbling over my words again. Fuck. But if Pyramid Head wins, I think the best way for him to kill Chris is to just split him in half with a Great Knife. And I think a good way to lead into that is for right before Chris dies. You know how in later Silent Hill games, they sort of bleed the town sort of bleeds into the other world by sort of. It's a weird effect that's hard to describe, but there's an effect that plays in later Silent Hill games where the ground where the environment sort of bleeds into each other, which is a transition between the town and the other world. And I think having that happen, which would happen to where Chris's other world would bleed into James's other world, and right as he's about to die, he sees Pyramid Head for what he really is, which strikes true fear in him right before he's split in half by the Great Knife. I think that'd be a very cool moment to solidify Chris's death. Which, personally, of the two, I do lean towards Pyramid Head winning overall. I do think that his chances of winning are more concrete than Chris's. But Chris would definitely put up a good fight, and I definitely think it could be a very cool fight if handled well. Now, as far as miscellaneous stuff, a couple track name ideas I had. Execution and Silence is a personal favorite. Top of the Pyramid is one I had. Silence Asylum is a pretty basic pick, but it's one I thought of. Objects of Your Torment is another one. And as far as animation ideas, I know you guys are sticking with sprites for now, and you probably could do this in just sprites, though you would have to make your own. But in the event that you guys decide to do 3D, I actually think this could be a very good stepping stone into 3D, because these characters are very grounded and there wouldn't be a lot of effects involved. And you can easily find models of Chris, Pyramid Head, and even James James online, so it wouldn't be that much trouble to like find actual models and get it put together. So if you guys ever decided you wanted to do a 3D episode, this is one I would recommend, if anything, as your first attempt to try to see how well you guys could do 3D. I don't really have any voice actor recommendations. In fact, I really only think you need one voice actor for Chris. I don't even think you need James to speak at all, because he wouldn't really have that much, I guess not that much of a presence in the actual fight other than the setup. And pretty much anyone can do Chris. You just need someone who could do a gravelly voice. Heck, I could do it too. Little pig. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions you want to ask after all that?
I feel like of all the pitches, this one kind of covered all the bases. At least the ones we've had so far. I don't know what would be missing, potentially. I don't know how the music is in either game.
Well, I mean, Silent Hill has a very iconic soundtrack. It's literally, when I was writing my paper, is what I was listening to the entire time. But I think a very atmospheric track more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Outlast soundtrack is very it's designed in a way to specifically get under your skin. And Chris's especially has like these tuba sounds to it. That's a bit hard to describe. But I do recommend giving it a listen, and it is very eerie and unnerving especially when you're actually playing the game. So I think a sort of more atmospheric track fits both of them pretty well.
I mean, that's all I got. I don't know. It sounds interesting. I like the idea of them like cutting between shots of their perspectives, seeing different things. I think that's a very interesting visual storytelling.
For Nebula, I have always been pushing to do a cramped, close-quartered horror fight, and this would definitely be something up my alley. I would probably be the one to end up directing and writing this, just because I love Silent Hill, and I really enjoy Outlast. It'd be fun. I think the debate is interesting as well, because you could probably make, I don't know, like the wider Outlast verse is not really well researched, so I'd be very interested in looking like maybe he has a scaling chain into like the second game or Outlast Trials or something. It'd be very interesting, I think, as an episode.
Yeah, and I think what especially aids this kind of fight is because when it comes to like Outlast specifically, it's very low scale. It's not that high scale. It's pretty low scale, and I think that pairs well with Pyramid Head specifically because when you think about a lot of Pyramid Head matchups, they kind of put him against people that are just outside of his weight class, just generally. And that's not to say like that's a bad thing. Like obviously there's a lot of fun you could probably make with a bunch of different Pyramid Head matchups. But I think as far as like where Pyramid Head stands in like a physical fight, I think Chris is a good pair because it keeps things grounded between the two of them. That's how I see it anyway.
I like it though.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Thanks a lot. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I guess this is where we're gonna end things.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for
presentation doc.
Thank you both for this opportunity. I really appreciate just getting this chance to share my idea, and I'm glad to hear you like it a whole lot.
Man, I think it sounds very interesting. Especially killing Pyramid Head. Fuck that guy. I saw his ass in Astrobot and I walked away.
But yeah, I actually got a live stream I need to get to in about 30 minutes, so I'm gonna end this here.
Yeah, no problem.
So yeah, thank you once again. Thank you for your time, and I guess I'll see you around. Bye.